Welcome back. And that was very interesting talk with Dario Gouveia about his Soul to Soul Foundation, giving back just a pair of shoes, going a long way with young people out there. And it's not just giving it to young people, but he's been giving it to all the ladies and the men that are out in the streets that actually don't have access to that. So let's get involved in making those differences. Today we're going to talk about something that I think a lot of you parents are going to actually relate to, and we're going to help you with this particular topic because we felt it's something important. A very interesting guest. I spoke to her before on my show. A phenomenal, should we say, inspirational one. It's Sister Mehreen Mia Cassimjee. She is Professor, Doctor, Ambassador Mehreen Mia. And let me tell you a little bit about her. She has a doctorate and professorship in humanities education and humanitarianism, global goodwill ambassador for GRU and USA. She is the CEO founder of the MEA Company, the president of Success World One Academy, essay representative and professor of education, International Internship University, a global speaker, an international lecturer, a transformational coach leader, multiple global award winner, and an international thought leader and CBT NLP master. Today, we're going to be talking a topic, and to all you parents out there, grab a cup of coffee, sit down, get on the couch, and get enticed into dealing with the empty nest syndrome. And that's what we're going to be talking about this afternoon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A very warm welcome to the show, Sister Mehreen.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shukran for having me. It's lovely to hear you and be with you again.
Yes, we always look forward to having these interesting conversations with yourself. How are you doing this morning?
Alhamdulillah, doing well, doing well. It's cold in Natal, but doing well. I'm sure it's
Yeah, I
cold back.
think everybody's suffering from this bout of cold, and it's really bitterly cold down here in Johannesburg, but I suppose we all learn to deal with it.
Yeah. We do.
Sister Mehreen, your resume when I read it is just so inspirational, the amount of things that you do. So this is why today we decided to discuss a topic that I think many parents are struggling with at the moment. And I would say it's something that we need to educate parents about is the empty nest syndrome. Let's talk about it. And I think a lot of people think that if they struggle from empty nest syndrome, they're struggling with a mental disorder or a clinical diagnosis, which instead it actually isn't. It's just, I think, an emotion that emotional ride, should we say, that one goes through when our kids obviously get married and leave home or move out to be able to go and study further and things like that. So let's delve into this topic and entice our parents to be able to deal with this in a better way.
Yeah. So, emptiness syndrome, to be quite honest, Sister Nafeesa, is something I think many parents themselves don't even know about. Many are unaware that
Hmm.
such a thing exists, and if they do know about it, it becomes a stigma that, oh gosh, do I have this? It's a catastrophe if I do.
Mm,
But it's general, and I think every single parent who has had a child leave their home has gone through it at some point or form. Just never were aware of it. But I think that the key to knowing about it is to understand what does this mean. So ENS, which is emptiness syndrome, is basically when your child leaves home. It's the kind of grief that this parent would feel, or the
mm,
underlying factors of grief that they go through when the child is gone, and that's more so because of the kind of the loss that they're feeling, the emptiness that goes with the fact that somebody is no longer there. Remember, this is a different sort of grief as opposed to somebody passing on. This grief is very different compared to the grief of the loss of somebody who's now gone and passed away.
mm,
So
mm,
this is where your child is moving away from your environment. Remember, this is an environment you grew this child up in. You did everything for this child. Your everything about your life focused around this child. The world was this child or the children that you have. So what happens is this child now has to move away and move in, and the emptiness that comes with that is what develops within you as this empty syndrome. It's actually exactly what it means. Your nest is
mm,
becoming empty. So you develop the
mm,
syndrome of what do I do now? How do I go through life now? How am I going to adjust my routine? Oh my God, my world is changing. The child is not going to be here.
mm,
And then what becomes even worse of a factor is in, especially for the mothers or the
mhm,
primary caregiver, they become so like, is I equip the child enough? And then
Mm,
it becomes a problem of kind of the interference because I need to constantly make sure they're okay. So I'm constantly trying to be in contact and knowing what they're doing because I want to be kind of, losing the control when they leave. So I want to keep the control after they leave. So there's many
mm.
factors, but that's what the ENS is about. It's the losing of the child from your home and your environment to the outer world, so to speak.
I understand what you're talking about when you say we get so involved in a routine, which is so true because I mean, we grow our kids up from young and then they go to school and university, and you're stuck in that, that roundabout route where you every single day are only penning out what you need to do for your child is maybe take them to school, fetch them from school, take them to madrasa, deal with their homework, and then suddenly they reach this age where they go into university and they become quite self-sufficient. And I think I also went through it. My son's now 26 and married. And you ask yourself the question, where to now? Because you're so stuck in that routine and you're so accustomed to be able to do those things every single day of your life. So how do we
Yes.
adjust? Because I mean, I think for me, my adjustment was giving them the understanding, making them understand that they're, myself, understanding that he's now an adult and we can guide him, but also give him his space at the same time and understanding and just be there as a guide and as a support structure, as opposed to when they were young and you were that mom and you were that integral part all the time.
Mm. I think what's important is for our parents who are listening to identify what exactly are the challenges that they may go through. For example,
Mm,
if the child has to leave, your life becomes a little bit more stressed than it was. You become emotional. You actually become a little bit, irritable with yourself because your norm is not the norm anymore.
mhm,
And if you, for example, are in a relationship and your marriage is not stable, but you're kind of stuck in your marriage because of the child. Once this child has to leave, what happens to your marriage? And then the stress of going through that. And then the thing is, how do you actually keep this relationship or the bond with the child? One of the
mm,
things I've experienced, especially with counseling, is that you actually have a child that's getting married. Your child gets married, and whoever they're getting married to, the parent is happy for the marriage itself, but the fear factor is, am I being replaced with that spouse? And many
mm,
of the interferences that happen with the children's marriages by the parent is not really understood because this ENS is not understood. We need to
mm,
really, children that leave homes also need to really realize what happens to that parent. What do they go through? And, as I go through listening to myself talk right now, I mean, I'm an only child. So my mother and my father had no replacement for a me, as
mm, mm,
opposed to a parent who has more than one child. And, so it becomes very difficult for them. And you really have to understand that these parents really do build themselves around the children. They
mm,
everything is around the children. What do they eat for the day is what does the child feel like eating. We
mm,
kind of forget. But here is where I want to just pause, Nafis, and always say this is why it is so important for us to really keep the sense of individuality no matter what role we play in people's lives. Because even as a parent, we forget, we tend to, especially Islamically for something, we tend to forget that before I'm a mother, before I'm a wife, I am still an individual. And
mm, mm,
we lack the sense of individuality when we become so engrossed in the role of being the parent. When we become the
mm,
mother, we forget that I'm a person. And when the child has to leave home, that sense of independence has to come back, and you don't even know how to identify with yourself as an individual anymore. So it becomes really a conflict for yourself. And I'll just say, at the top of my head, just quickly, as a parent, sometimes you sit and you say, well, one day I think I'll do this when I have time. Or one day I'm going
mm,
to get to do this when this house is quiet, stuff
mm,
like that. So I
mm,
say, make up a list of the things you one day said you will do. And when you now have the time because your child is now gone and your spouse is now working, think of what is it that's realistically on your one day list that you can start to do now. Also, perception is key, Sister Nafisa. Lots of
mhm,
parents look at it as the child is left and it's this forlorn feeling and it's this horrible feeling and it's this emptiness feeling. Try and change your perception to think of, what, yes, they've left, But embrace yourself and give yourself a tap on the back and say, I have done a fantastic job as a parent that my child
Mhm.
is now able to leave. So how you perceive them leaving is also important to how you will cope with them gone. You know,
Mm.
don't
Yes.
think of it as such a negative. Think of it more on a positive basis. Try and find positivity in you as your parent, being the parent. I've done such a fantastic job. My child is going to be able to pull positiveness into that, as opposed to the sitting and saying, oh gosh, the child is going. I don't know if they're going to make it out there. I don't know if I did enough. No, tell yourself, I've done enough. My child is
Mm.
good enough, and the child is going to be successful. And alhamdulillah, we've got to this point where he or she is able to move and be able to make the proper decisions. And your role now is to step back, become an individual, and start to make your du'as for this child to become
Mhm.
themselves and to grow themselves and to eventually, carry on with the cycle of being the parent to their child, etc., etc. So there are lots of things that we can tell parents to do
Mhm.
when these things happen. But the key, I think, is number one, sit and ask yourself, what is it that I can do with my time? But also set yourself now, if you are a parent whose child is now not there and you have the space and the time and you're going through this illness, um, set yourself some achievable goals. And what also helps, especially, is when
Mhm.
you tend to speak to other parents that have gone similar than you.
Mhm.
Engage with the parents that have had children to either get married or leave home. Build a little network like that and start to engage in stuff that you do together. Or build your
Mhm.
hobby, try and do things. Go to the
Yeah.
same room that you used to be in and redecorate it. Redecorate it to be something that you would like to go to, instead of having it the way it was for the child because the child has to come back to it. No, redecorate that space now to be something different, and then you will automatically go into a different mode. It can be a memory,
Definitely.
something that
Let's unpack that in a few seconds. We're just going to go for a quick break.
sure.
Hunger ratios in South Africa are on an upward trajectory since the beginning of COVID 19. Over 23% of South African households experienced hunger last summer. At SANZAF, we aim to ease the hunger struggles of those in need by providing freshly prepared meals daily. You can be part of this by donating towards the SANZAF Meals Project. Visit sanzaf.org.za or call us on 011 834 6046. SANZAF, changing lives through development and relief.
Once again, Maulana Timol will be taking a trip abroad for Kurbani. Many people in the villages live well below the poverty line and only eat meat on the days of Eid al-Adha. Support this cause at 1,820 Rand for 7 shares or 260 Rand per share. Contact Maulana Timol, Maulana Sajjad, Maulana Hamad or Maulana Abbad on 011 852 6324 or 8584 or 8538 or 072 299 9268. All slaughtering will be supervised by a team of foreign and local ulama. Visit www.operationkurbani.org.za.
There's no smell that takes me back to the comfort of my childhood than the smell of black seed oil being applied by my nanny. Now I'm using tib black seed in my own home to soothe sniffles and coughs, to help with digestion and immunity, and of course, as part of my beauty routine. After all these years, I've come to appreciate the wisdom in finding comfort and shifa in trusted treatments like tib black seed. You can find Tib Black Seed at all leading pharmacies or find out more at blackseed.co.za.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042 203 1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Love is behind all the greatest stories of our lives. And the greatest love of all is Allah's. The first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah are the days most loved by Allah. So give Qurbani in 30 countries worldwide. Give Qurbani. Give love with Islamic Relief.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media.
Welcome back, and we're in discussion with Dr. Professor Mehreen Cassimjee about emptiness syndrome. Welcome back to the show. As we were talking, we were just going to unpack some of the ways on how parents can deal with the situation. And I think one thing you brought to attention, which I think is very pertinent, is the fact that we need to also realize that we ourselves are individuals and that we need to also find our spaces and places where we fit in, where we can create should we say, a life ourselves and get out of our bubbles and stop? Because what happens is inevitably when our kids move out, as you said, it's almost as though our lives comes to a standstill and then we don't know where to start.
Absolutely, absolutely. What happens is we become so engrossed in the parenting role that we forget that we're an individual with our own needs, our own wants, our own desires, our own being. We become so engrossed in this being of the child. And then we become the parent. And then the life and everything about the child becomes everything for you. And when the child has to leave, automatically you forget, oh my gosh, so now who am I again? And that I again has to be defined for you again. And then you sit and you say, well, okay, so now what happens to me? But remember, you also have not allowed yourself to grow within yourself to get to this point. But I just want to say, when it comes to ENS also, if you have a child that is living with you currently and you know, let's just say your child's wedding is planned for some time soon, or in the next 2-3 months, you don't have to wait for this child to leave for you to experience ENS. Prep yourself knowing that my child is going to be going. It's a reality you have to face. As much as you get so engrossed in whatever you're supposed to be doing in terms of wedding preparations and whatever you get so engrossed in doing for weddings and the child to have to leave home, also prepare yourself mentally to know that the child is not going to be here anymore. And what am I going to be doing when she or he is not here? So prep yourself in advance. You don't have to wait to experience the hollow feeling and the emptiness for you to have to go through the syndrome. You can actually prep yourself, but you don't have to go through it. And by doing that, I mean, start to network with people, for example, who have had kids leave before your child leaves. And then you kind of know what to expect yourself to be feeling. You know, it's also a little bit if you're a parent who's got a job and you are working, because then it's also the refocus when once your child is gone, you still have the job to fall back on. But if you are somebody who's at home and your everything was about the child and the child has to leave, and then let's, for example, you say you lose a spouse, compounding factors that can make ENS a lot worse to cope with. You know, like if you're menopausal, if you have a spouse that is sick, if you, you have marital issues that you don't, nobody was aware of before. Now that the child is gone, it's going to be there even more. So to have to deal with lots of things happen. And then the one key thing that does happen with many parents is as soon as the child is left, because you become so engrossed in this ENS and you swallow yourself up literally into this phase, you then want to relocate, you want to cut down, you want to sell your house, you want to just move into something smaller. Don't make irrational, huge decisions when you're feeling irrational.
Right.
So it's
a
not
lot
as
of parents, Mehreen, get stuck in this bubble.
Yeah.
Where and at some point I noticed some parents actually stop living. They just carry on with their mundane life day to day without doing anything
Yeah.
interesting for themselves. What sort of advice would you give them? Because you see them stuck in this bubble and you see the same thing happening day in and day out and nothing changing. And then that's when you realize, oh my goodness, they are suffering the syndrome. They are stuck in this bubble, but they don't know how to get themselves out of it. And like one way, like you were saying, is to keep busy with your work. But I think inevitably sometimes what happens is you get stuck in that routine of also just being involved in your work to be able to take your mind off that situation. Is to maybe say, can we look at other things that a parent can possibly do just to, kind of change that routine and that environment and make themselves feel better, like they're worthy of themselves and they are capable of doing other things post just being only a parent?
Yes, yes, of course. The number one key thing, of course, remember, and we teach this on across the board, is if you want to change anything, you have to be aware of what it is that needs to change. So the key number one factor would be that you have to acknowledge that you're going through this. You have to acknowledge that this is you, that you are going through illness, that you are actually feeling this kind of grief, and actually allow yourself to be upset if you are feeling upset about it. Acknowledge it. Don't try and hide it away. The number one. Number two is once that is acknowledged, you are then aware of what it's doing to you. If it is taking you out of your zone and taking you out completely, then ask yourself a couple of very important questions that only you can answer for yourself. Number one, what is it that I need to do to make myself feel better? What can I do? For example, if you find yourself constantly walking into the child's room where the child used to sleep, and nothing about this room has changed, but there's a jacket or something in the cupboard, and you go and you open it constantly just so that you see the child's jacket there and you feel happy and you walk out, change it. Take the jacket out, tell the child, you know what, when you come again, I'm going to give you this jacket because you forgot it, and redecorate that room. It's not
I
that
have
you are
I'm
getting
going
more
to butt in here, my darling. We have a message. It says from Leah Lynette Robery, Assalamu alaikum. I think it's so important to make our children aware of change. To change means to grow into a new level of the cycles of life. Nature teaches us the cyclical nature of life. We need to learn to embrace these changes for the blessings each cycle brings. And thank you for this awareness. Much appreciated.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for the comment. And
Yeah,
you're
and I
right.
think that comment,
That's
and she's
exactly what
right
you're
with what
saying.
she said. She's kind of answered our question to some extent, and I'm
Yes,
sitting here and I'm laughing because I'm a parent of a 26-year-old, but I can say shukr to Allah, I've embraced it in a good way. So
yes, yes,
I think we learn as we
absolutely.
go along. So Alhamdulillah, I
We
mean,
do. We do.
I think we
You know
always
what?
have to
Also,
tell
for every,
ourselves that as you said and as I brought it up, that we're individuals that need to understand that we also
yes,
have lives and that we also need to create value to our lives besides our kids, and we know they're an integral part of our lives, but as you said, we're also integral individuals.
yes. And remember, don't rush the process of your healing if you are somebody going through something like this, because only you know why it's as deep as it is for you. But the whole idea is to be aware of it, to create more awareness of yourself, and go through it and learn that you can. You can
Right.
actually get through it properly if you just develop yourself. Key awareness is important. But
That's
remember, you
true.
don't have to lose yourself in the process. Yes, you will feel the loss. You will feel the, and you know what happens sometimes though is many people don't even react to you or feel that
Mm.
something's wrong with you because how could you be feeling like that? So only you feel it, but only you can change it, and it can be changed. That's the bottom line though. It can be changed. But I want to also say to every child that has left home, you also play an integral part in keeping in touch with your parents. You cannot
I think
move
that's
away
true.
from that home and lose touch with your parent, because that alone also hurts a lot. So it works both ways. And that's why I'm
Mm.
saying when you have a child at home, prep each other that, you know what, when I'm leaving mommy, I'll still meet you for coffee every weekend or every second weekend, or make your coffee dates, or you don't exclude yourself from the equation fully, but you
Mhm.
include each other in your lives, and not as much as before, but enough so
Mm.
that you know you still there for each other. It's very important. But keep in
I,
touch with each other. Take the control of what you can control. You can't control now your child's life after your child is left, but you can
mm.
control yourself and how you include yourself in the child's life going forward.
I agree, and it's about creating that balance. I so agree with you.
Yes.
That balance in relationship, the balance in time, and all the things that you do, so you have a wholesome life where you get a bit of everything that's beneficial to you, including time with your kids.
Sister Nafisa, there's one thing that I'm going to say, and I hope nobody's going to shoot me down for saying this. But remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has used us as parents merely as mediums to bring children into this world as part of
Hmm.
His will. But when
You're
you
so right.
realize that, you realize that your child is actually not even totally yours. It belongs
Mm.
to your child is Allah's child, and your child deserves to have to leave yours and still carry on, because the cycle has to carry on as per what Allah wills. So when you
Mm.
when you look at it from that point of view, you realize, wait, I have done my bit. Now I'm leaving to Allah what is the amanat given me. And Allah will now
Mm.
take care of the balance. And you do it well enough, inshallah, Allah will also maintain contact with you and things will go well. But we cannot hold on to things so much that it must hurt us when we have to lose so much. If
Mm.
death of somebody hurts so much, but we have to get through it. When your child
Mm.
walks out the door, that child is still much alive. The child is still able to hear your voice and you can hear the child's voice. So see your shukr to Allah for that and grow with that. In your gratitude, Allah will make it easier for you, inshallah, if you're a parent that is experiencing this. We wish you.
Ameen. Jazakallah for your amazing advice. Always very valuable. I really appreciate you taking the time out to educate us about how to deal with these topics. And that's
Ameen.
what it's about, is just, making people understand the situations they're in and how they can make it better for themselves and overcome these challenges. So Jazakallah so much for joining me on the show today. Definitely some very, very valuable information that we as parents can take back with us. And I'm hoping that we can keep in touch and chat again real soon. Jazakallah so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Ameen. It was lovely to be here. Ask for du'as for us all, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa
Um,
rahmatullahi
Ameen. Allah bless you. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa
wa barakatuh.
barakatuh. And that was, of course, Sister Mehreen Mia Cassimjee, Professor Doctor. I'm going to say it again. Unbelievable stories going on the show today. And this is one of the ways to be able to deal with a situation called empty nest syndrome once our kids leave home. I think some really valuable advice to think about and some good food for thought. So, Jazakallah to her for getting on the show and allowing us to educate ourselves on how to deal with the topic in a better way. And we're going to go for a quick break. Stay with us. We're not going away. As we know, there was an earthquake that hit Afghanistan, and we're going to be speaking to Sister Nadima Noor a little bit more about that. Stay with us. We'll be back with you in a short while.